while loop in Java. In this video, we are going to discuss about for loop in Java, which are actually a looping statement and they are more compact way to write while statement. You can see on my screen, I have a program to print numbers from 1 to 5 using while statement. Here, I initialize the variable say I with value 1. And as I am using while statement, which is actually a entry control statement, so before entering a loop, I have to check the condition. That condition is true or false. So I check that whether the value of I is less than or equal to 5 or not. As I know that value of I is 1 and it comes to be true, I can enter inside the block and print the value of I. And then I go for the increment of variable. And as my variable get increment and value of I comes to be 2, it check the condition in while statement and go to print the value of y, the value of I again. So this process goes to be continue inside the loop when my while comes to find that value of I becomes 6. When value of I becomes 6, my while statement I is less than or equal to 5 turns to be false. And when I find that my while condition is false, my Java compiler exit out of the block. This is what my while statement is. So here in while statement, we initialize a variable, check the condition and go for the increment of variable. What happens if I initialize, check the condition and increment the variable in single line? So this I can do with the help of for loop. So for this I will first comment my while loop and then we start to write the complete code inside a for loop. To write a code in a for loop, I have to use a keyword for followed by brackets. In the bracket, I have to initialize a variable, which is my first step. Then after initializing, I have to put the condition. Then I have to go for increment part. This is all come in a single line, after which I can have a statement. Statement what I want to do. So this is the complete syntax of my for loop. And now I comment this. You can go through the syntax. That is, I have to first initialize the variable. Then I have to put the condition part and then go for the increment and I have to print the statement. For this, I will write here for. As I have a variable name int I equal to 1. So I declare a variable and initialize in my first part of the for loop, that is initialize. I check whether I is less than or equal to 5. If it is, then I have to go and print the statement. So I here print the statement system dot out dot println I is equal to and value of I and followed by semicolon. So here what happens in for loop, I first initialize the statement. Then after initializing, I have to go to check the condition. If the condition is true or false. If it is true, it go and print the statement. And after printing the statement, it go for the increment or decrement of the variable part. So this is the step what we followed in for loop. It is similar as we have done in a while loop, but only one difference that in while loop we are following steps in 3 different parts, that is initializing of variable outside the loop, then printing the variable inside the loop body and incrementing the variable part in the loop body. So first we run this program after saving and you can see that it is the same as my while loop is. But you can always find the difference between while loop and for loop. The main difference is the structure of both the loops. While loop is written in three parts, that is initializing, then incrementing and condition checking, while for loop is in a one line statement, that is I initialize, condition checking and increment is done in a single line. Apart from this, I initialize a variable inside the syntax of for loop. But in while loop, I do outside the while loop syntax. When I write while, before that, I have to initialize the variable. Increment I done when I am in the body of for loop itself, here only. But in while loop, I done. These are some basics difference between for loop and while loop, but there is also one major difference between for loop and while loop, that if I know the increment count, then I use the for loop. But if the increment count is not determined, then in that case we use while loop. I can explain you. Suppose I want to print number from 1 to 10. So I know that I start to print from 1 and print up to 10. So the initialization number and the number up to which I have to print is known to me. So this is the case where I am going to use the for loop. But suppose I say that I am going to check the password entered by the user, and if password is correct, then only I allow user to enter inside the system. So I don't know what type of password a user is going to enter. So and if that type of condition occurs in front of me, I have to use while. Up to now we discussed for loop and difference between for and while loop. Now we will discuss nesting of loop, which are actually used to handle multi-level logic like printing of the patterns, printing of tables, sorting algorithms, and so on. So what is exactly the concept is that we have to use one loop. We have to use a for loop inside a for loop. So here I will use a for loop inside a for loop, for which I have already declared a loop here as for int I equal to 1, I is less than equal to 5 and I plus plus. So here inside this for loop I will use another for loop. So what I will do here, to do this I will first have to create a pattern here. In order to create a pattern, I will like to print some number, say 1, then 1 2, 1 2 3, 1 2 3 4 and 1 2 3 4 5. So I have to print this pattern using nesting of for loop. For this, what I will do, I will use another variable, say for int j equal to 1. Then inside that I want to print the value 1 up to value of I, then j plus plus. And then I will create a loop inside this loop, that is a body of for loop. Here I will print the value of j like system dot out dot print, and I will print the value of j here, and then as I want it in the next line, so here I will declare as system dot out dot print ln, and in this way you can see that there is a first body of for loop, and inside this body I use another for loop in order to print this given pattern. So we'll run this and you can see that I have a specified pattern over here. So in this way you can use the nesting of for loop, that is you can use one loop inside another loop. In next video we will discuss to use which loop at what time, that is we will discuss the difference when we have to use while loop, when we have to use for loop, when we have to use do while loop. So thank you very much.